It's Wednesday, my dudes, and tonight our guest is known for his unique POV, humble opinions, sharp suits, and weird tattoos. He's worked with some of the biggest brands, collaborated with well-known creators, and he also happens to be my boss. Please welcome to the show the man who tolerates me more than Machu, Timm Chiusano. We'll talk with Tim about his journey from ad exec to full-time content creator, his love of collecting, and how his message of gratitude and positivity has earned him an invite to the White House 3 times. White House here, roughly the same thing. Anyway, it's all happening right now on Between Two Sentinels. Machu, cue that intro. I really hope I have a job tomorrow. I feel like we're the perfect follow-up for the White House, right? Like, your stunned silence is really giving me confidence to keep going here.
Ahoy, ahoy!
Ahoy, ahoy! It is Wednesday, my dudes, and welcome to episode 64 of Between Two Sentinels, the show that you have only yourselves to blame. We keep showing up, you keep showing up, and we'll just keep doing this until, somebody stops showing up. It'll probably be Machu. But anyway, I, of course, am J-Shot, and the man who is making me so incredibly jealous of the work he's doing with his Mezco Turtles is the one and only Machu Toy. What's up, dude?
Ahoy.
Ahoy. Ahoy.
Yeah, so like I promised you I wouldn't put anything up until like you and Toy Father got your turtles in hand.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
And then you cranked out art is the only way to describe it.
Well, I woke up and I was just like, I can do these. I can take a shot now.
You can. You absolutely 100% can. And thank you for swapping with me. Let's see if we get these. These things are just.
Let me get you.
They're so good. They're really so good.
Yeah, so good.
It's kind of unbelievable. Watching you play with them and have them for about a week before getting them in hand, and then getting them in hand, and you're like, oh, this lives up to the hype.
Yeah,
that's really
surprisingly, right?
Surprising. Yeah, it's very, very true. But yeah, we got an interesting show tonight. Tim is here. He's what we like to call toy community adjacent, right? He is someone who is doing the thing, right? We're all out here doing our best to create content and hopefully get paid for doing that. And he's actually out there doing it. But before we have him jump in, should we check in with the chat here? Looks like we got Wade Creates is here saying, what's up, fellas? Dom wants to know who we're casting for Batman this week. And I do like the suggestion that Wade has of casting Betty White as Robin. Fortunately, she has left us too soon. Toy Retsu hitting us with the
nerds.
And Jurassic Jesse's in the house saying, what's up, Sentinels? And then we've also got Dom coming in with another comment that says, I need to find that set. Yeah.
I mean, you can find that set sold out in most places. I'm sorry.
Or be willing to shell out. See what I did there? The money for it. So
yeah.
And of course, Steve, who I swear every week Steve is just vying for my job, says words for J-Shot to read.
And you did it.
You ever need to replace me, man? That's who you go with. Miguel Negron is also saying, let's go. And I'm sure more people will join us.
Wait. Can you look at his profile picture?
It's Nimrod.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's
we all know who that is. We all know who that is.
Speaking of, we will be on what is it? Figure 15? Go 15 on Friday?
Yes, Friday. This Friday.
You okay, man? Did you not have your energy drink before the show? What happened?
I did not.
Okay. All right. So Jurassic Jester. I can read. However, I was born to lead, not read. It was ridiculous. I don't even know what I'm saying. Definitely, I just do want to mention again, we look to you guys in the chat for interaction and to keep the conversation going. Tim is here, and he has said, nothing's off the table. So feel free to ask away. Additionally, we do have those super hats. Never expected, but always appreciated. And if you feel so inclined, we always appreciate that. So, what do you got? What do you open up?
I wanted to open up something that I got from 9 to 5 Warriors.
Oh, I actually brought mine to the office and was playing with them the other day.
I told you to keep them for the stream.
Well, I took a bunch of pictures.
Packaging.
Yeah, no, these things are great. Here, let me go throw it full screen. Not me. Nobody wants to see me. Look at
A donut with a coffee cup lid.
They're really good.
I specifically asked for this one. I really like this one.
I got the Scotty, the Scotch tape.
Oh, that's a good one.
Actually works as a Scotch tape dispenser, so that's a lot of fun. So
sorry for all the rough noise. I got the chips, the potato chips.
Oh, so you got the bad guys. I got the good guys.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. Then we'll have to make a play date.
Yeah. I'm wondering if this actually fits in a Pringles can.
Oh, there's only one way to find out. DoorDash Pringles can.
So this is cool.
Man, Beast Boys checking in.
Shout out to 9 to 5 Warriors. Thank you.
They are. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with them so far. I took a bunch of shots yesterday. I'll be sharing them. But yes, a big shout out to 9 to 5 Warriors for sending us stuff. So
it's awesome. I almost don't want to open it because the packaging looks so nice.
There's an easy fix for that. He sent us some stuff, and I already purchased them on Big Bad. So we'll keep one there.
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah. All right. So cool.
Yeah. They're going to be a lot of fun too, and I like the world he's building around it. It's pretty awesome, and it certainly hits on that nostalgia of the Food Fighters line that was out there.
Yep.
Oh. All right. Should we bring him in, or do you think the longer we keep him waiting, the less chance I have of keeping my job for tomorrow?
I mean, that's all up to you.
All right. Well, let's not risk it. Let's not risk it.
All right.
Tim, welcome.
Wow, surprise! I'm here. What's up, guys?
What's up?
How you doing? Treat to be here.
I'm still in shock that you agreed to come on this show. This is ridiculous, and I appreciate that.
When is the last time you asked me for something? I was like, that's a hard no. Other than, hey, do I really have to do my performance review? And that was even still.
Yeah, that was probably it. So
yeah,
that was probably it. 796 Studios, you're the one that I'm worried about tonight, so don't disappoint. Risk it for the biscuit, J Shot. Thank you. And Headrock is here as well. So hi, sir. Welcome. We talked about this a little bit backstage before. What the hell are you doing here? You went from the White House to here. That's right. I did ask you. You're just too nice. You said yes. But Machu and I were talking a little bit earlier, and just wanted to kind of give a little bit of a backstory as to why I thought it was important to bring you on. One, not trying to kiss ass anymore, but you're doing the thing, man. You're doing the damn thing, right? You're going to take the leap. You're going to move from the ad exec position, and you're going to go into become a full-time content creator. How does that feel, dude? And yes, I called my boss, dude. I do that on a regular basis.
Honestly, there's still so much to be done in the short term. I don't know. It's that, and that's been my mode throughout all of this is like, literally, what do I need to know? What do I need to do the next day? Like, where do I need to be? How present can I be? And honestly, that's been both a blessing and a curse. It's been a blessing because I've been able to just do a lot of things and be present throughout. But it also is a curse because I got sucked into this vortex of like, I'm just going. And then they're like 3 years go by and you're like, what the hell am I doing? I need to kind of pick a swim lane here. Then you start to deal with real burnout, etc. So honestly, the answer to your question is I don't know. There's so much planning to be done, as you know firsthand. It's like, okay, well, what would happen? What does good look like? What is that specific timeline? Like, there's paying for Cobra by myself and like all of those things, right? Like all of that is super, super daunting, especially at 46 years old with a daughter and a mortgage and like all of the things that had just been like clockwork before. So I don't know, but I know that if I don't pick a date, at least in the reasonable foreseeable future, then I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life.
Right.
And I'm going to be in a position where I'm like, oh, there was that one time where this thing was going on and I just didn't do what I thought was needed to actually see how far it can go. And the last thing I'll say on that is like, this was the conversation I had with my dad, and I haven't even had like the full conversation with him yet. Because yes, I still do talk to my dad about this stuff, even at 46 and he's 76, but he's a super wise dude for the most part. And, you know, part of it was like, I just want to see what's possible, man. Like, you know, to your point of like doing the thing, I've been doing, you know, as probably both of you know, there's like a specific amount of bandwidth that you can put against this, and it's not all of it. So if I'm doing what I'm doing now with like 20% of my bandwidth, because as you know, and as you can attest to, like I work my ass off on a pretty consistent basis, then what's possible? And I feel like I would really, really, really regret, you know, I don't want to be like 75 or 76 and be like, oh, there's that one time where I could have done that thing and I didn't do that thing. So yeah.
So here we are. So you mentioned that it's been 3 years, and first off, I can't believe how fast those 3 years have gone by. You know, I think back to the first time when you started doing protein bar reviews, you know, and that's kind of how this all started. But 3 years basically puts us right smack in the middle of the pandemic, or you know,
yeah, it's been more like, because August 19 is the first TikTok that I made, which is nuts. That'll be 5 years in August since I made the first one. You know, and then I guess it is more like 4 years. You know, I guess I'd say 3 for a couple of different reasons. One, time just goes by that fast. But yeah, I guess it's been 4 years almost to the week now.
Yeah.
But we were like really in the initial throes of it. And yeah, it does fly by.
I was trying to see, and I realized now that TikTok doesn't put that number up. You mentioned that August 2019 was the first TikTok. How many have you made since then? You know,
I would say, yeah, it's in the ballpark of 16 to 1700.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you talk about putting in the work, right? Like this isn't I did 20 videos and I can't get over 500 views. You're talking about consistently cranking out, you know, this many pieces of content. And, you know, one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about, and we might jump around here a little bit, is you do it all, right? Like you shoot it, you edit it, you do the voiceover, you put the music to it. In that time of creating 1,600 videos, you know, what techniques did you kind of develop for yourself? How did you kind of start to streamline it? You know, what did you learn just about the process?
Like it was a learning process throughout the entire, like there was not a single point where I was like, okay, cool, I've got it. Like even now, and down to a granular level. So I'd say the first thing was starting with making the TikToks in the actual app. And that's where the first probably maybe the first 100 or so. And then I started to struggle with time management. And I'm like, okay, how do I actually do this on a more, like, make this more scalable? I messed around with a couple other platforms, and it was literally just like every single day batch testing in a 1-by-1 basis of like, how fast can I do it? Did I like doing it? And what were the results? So the first handful were actually made in TikTok. Then I messed around. Then I went to iMovie, which is where I am now with it, which a lot of people think is nuts because I edit with my head tilted to the side, because on laptop you can't edit vertically.
Right.
So that didn't last for too long because I was like, this feels weird. Tried Adobe Rush, and that was crashing all the time. And I'm like, I can't do this. It's just way too buggy. So I went back to iMovie, and there were a couple breakthroughs. Like once TikTok had the voiceover capability, that unlocked an entire different stratosphere of like storytelling for me, because I could not worry about what I'm doing in the moment. I actually don't really like being on camera. It's why I shoot and don't use the audio for 90% of my stuff. And it's why I use you for a vast majority of my voiceovers, because it's a lot easier when I project things, at least in my head, versus like, oh, okay, let me say these like I did this today. Like it just feels goofy to me to do that. So
Right.
it was like the platform, it was the workflow. Once I figured out that airdropping clips to my laptop would allow me to do a rough cut on the subway ride home, so that by the next morning I at least had some semblance of a timeline that I would then make up the voiceover off the top of my head with, that then you just start doing and doing and doing. I found a good niche with what I just described, of saying like this is what you did. That started to really, really resonate at one point. And then right now I could probably go through any of these and be like, this is why this did great. This is why this did bad. And I can now, for better or worse, like just kick the crap out of basically every single piece of content that I've made. It doesn't make me smart enough to like not make that mistake again, or to like have a specific playbook. Like, as John can attest, I'm just literally running and gunning. And a lot of times too, like I'll click upload and I'll be like, crap, that was so stupid. Like I didn't do X, Y, or Z. But, as both of y'all know, it's better to get something out the door than it is to just kind of sit on your hands and be like, oh, let me keep, messing with this. So
Right.
Just keep doing the thing and be whatever you can do to get more comfortable along the way, I think is huge too. Because if you feel like you're forcing it and you don't truly love the process, then it's not going to be scalable. I found a way to truly love the process, and that made it, that's what made it scalable, and something that's been going on for as long as it have. It's like crazy to watch you scrolling through this and just like,
I'm like, when is it gonna stop?
I mean, dude, you're maybe in 2021 right now, if I had to guess.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Steve had a quick question here. Did you sorry, I'm losing my voice all of a sudden. Did you know all or most aspects before starting, or learning along the way?
I would say I learned mostly along the way. I mean, I started my career in ABC Sports, so storytelling relative to like teases for a sporting event was always something that was in the back of my head. I also grew up watching way too much MTV in the 90s, so like music videos, and my mom made me watch all kinds of like weird Woody Allen movies when I was a kid, and Cheech and Chong. So like that was there, but as far as like workflow and process, it was really the marriage of what is the vision that's in my brain, and then what can I do to extrapolate that as quickly as humanly possible. And that was having to teach myself on the go. I think that's why iMovie helped out so much. It's such a basic program that I couldn't screw things up, or I couldn't get in my own way relative to, oh, I'm going to try super hard to do this like masking or try to do this special effect. It was like, no, you are getting in, you are getting out, you are doing hard cuts across the board, and that's really it. And I think that made a huge difference. I didn't try too hard to adapt somebody else's process. I tried to learn like little bits and pieces, and it made me end up following a whole bunch of super random creators, because it was just like, oh, I have no interest in that content, but that person's transitions are amazing. And even if I never use that, like that's inspiration to get my brain to think different ways about like storytelling, and going from I'm now here doing this thing to I'm there doing that thing. So it really was a learning process along the way, and honestly still like a massive learning process on a day in and day out basis, mostly for like the strategic part of how can I just get smarter about what next week should look like. Like I don't know what I'm going to post tomorrow, and that's stupid. Like that's really not smart on my part. Like I should know probably for the next week what, even if I don't know the story of it, I should be like, Friday I'm going to do a tattoo story, Saturday I'm going to do a blank, etc., etc., etc. But I just don't have that discipline right now. Or I shouldn't say I don't have that discipline. I don't have that habit baked in, because again, as John can attest, it's like, cool, I'm like doing this thing and be like, oh, here's this email from so-and-so, or here's this. And like, it's an easy default for me to go back to work. which is part of the reason why I'm like, I can't do all these things forever because I'm just not putting all my effort into this yet.
Just real quick, Nimrod says that level of consistency is admirable on so many levels. It really is. It really is.
Thank you.
Wade Create says my plan has been to make cool thing, post cool thing, find out it's not as cool as you thought, try again. Like the planning ideal better, very admirable. And actually, I did want to bring this up because Tim, you had mentioned that you could go through any of these and say, okay, here's why this one didn't work, and here's why that one didn't work.
Yep.
How much do you pay attention to, the algorithm or your analytics, or is it more just, feeling it out from a sense of I started this way and I noticed that this works really well, or I started that way?
It's a great question. I try to not let the vanity metrics dictate too much, but I 1,000% get sucked into it. Like, good night, kiddo. But I 1,000% get sucked into it. Like, it's super hard, and I've deleted more stuff than I should admit. Like, there's a lot of times where after an hour I'm like gone, just if it's not performing right away. Especially now is stupid. So there's some things that I would say like, hey, do it this way, but a lot of things I'd be like, don't do it the way that I do it. I try to be conscientious, because each platform, as you all know, are different, right? So for TikTok, it's almost, and I don't love this about the platform, it's almost like crack attention, right? So how you literally have like a handful of frames to get somebody to tune in,
Right.
or they're going to disappear. And I try to be conscientious of that, but at the same time too, I don't want that to fully dictate my storytelling, because then I feel like if I wanted to just gain attention super quick, I think I could, because I've made enough now where I know what's going to do that, but I don't know that that's going to deliver the most value. Like that might get the most views, but like my biggest metric is just broader engagement. And so they made it. He made it all the way.
Made it all the way to the bottom.
Yeah.
I feel like that's an accomplishment.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's funny. I've got a handful of these downloaded, but I haven't gone like all the way back to the bottom. So that was kind of a trip to watch it scroll all the way through. So it makes sense in regards to the vanity metrics and how good the piece was. Like, I'm a firm believer of, and I try to also not beat myself up about this. Like, you make good content, it's going to perform well. You don't make good content, it's not going to perform well. And as many times as I'm like, man, I thought that was really going to do well, and it didn't do well. If I can put my ego aside, there's always something that I can learn from it. So great example. So I've done 2 collaborations recently with the guy who is the former CEO of 7-Eleven, which was dope for a multitude of reasons. The second time we did a collaboration together, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. The first one performed super well, 700,000 views. Like, it took off very quickly. And I was kind of like, who wants to see a couple of, one old white dude and one kind of old white dude, like walking around talking about business? I didn't think it was going to perform super well. So when it performed really well, I'm like, wow, that was a pleasant surprise, especially because the opening shot was like a pan into him sitting in a cube. And I'm like, it sets up the story well, but I just don't know how many people are going to be like, why am I watching an old guy sitting in a cubicle at an office? But apparently that question helped, because I did see in the comments, someone was like, not me getting sad for, somebody a bit older sitting in a cubicle at an office, right? So there must have been something about like, oh, this is interesting. I tried way too hard the second time to set it up. Like, instead of it being like literally a part 2 and like having the same opening segment and sequence of shots, I was like, oh, now this time you're going to come by my office. I'm going to be stressed out, but still be like, okay, cool, new guy, like, let's go to lunch. Didn't perform nearly as well. And I know that it's because I used myself in the opening shots versus him in the cube. And it's interesting. Like, I'll try to go through. And one time, this is a testament to how much support I get from my wife. One time I sat there and I was like, hey, go through and like, when you find a video that's performed like this, tell me what the first 3 shots are, what the music was that I used, and what my first 5 words were. And this was like 2 years ago or something. And so she sat there with me for like a half hour and did that. And it was so interesting to start to see the patterns of like, these certain things there's definitely times where it's like, this is completely nonsensical, like why this one did crap or why this one did well. But part of it is fascination for the algorithm. How does it work? How fair might it be? But then also, how can I get smarter about like if those are the rules that this is all played by, then like I have to understand that, or else I'm just going to beat my head against the wall. Because there is also a lot of logic to like 46-year-old dude who leans into a lot of career content really shouldn't have a broader chance to have what I've seen success-wise so far.
Yeah.
But I don't want to take a single piece of that for granted. So, piece by piece from, probably for as long as I'm making pieces, I'm going to deliberate all of that crap. But at the end of the day too, I'm going to click post because, a piece of crap is better than no crap.
Right. And John, like, I think I've said this before, and like one of our coaches from our old gym always said, done is better than perfect.
Right.
And I still carry that quote with me today.
Yeah.
Like whenever I'm making something, like sometimes I think I just want to, I don't want to post it. I don't want to I don't think it's going to perform well. But like Tim said, it's better to just put it out there, than to just like put nothing out. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and Tim, even when you were talking about the difference between the two videos with the CEO from 7-Eleven, not to say it's the same scale, but we've seen similar frustration, right? Where you spend days on a shot and it doesn't perform as well as somebody who puts up a figure in their hand, right? Like and it's sometimes it's the overthinking that gets you killed. I'll never forget when we first started, Machu complaining about his 1,700 likes on a Spider-Man picture because he's like, it's just in my hand. I didn't take any time to it. And I understand it from a creative perspective or an artist
perspective. It was 7,000 likes, not 1,700.
Oh, sorry, my bad, my mistake. I shortchanged you a couple thousand likes. Like you said, from an artist perspective or an ego perspective, it's like I didn't spend any time on this. Like, why are you liking this? And putting that aside is difficult, and that itself takes training and time and patience, which I'm not known to have. So
but at the same time too, I think to me that point is a testament to the authenticity piece of this as well. And that sometimes people just want the connective tissue, like they don't necessarily need things to be as polished as we may see them needing to be. Because most of the pieces that I've spent the most time on have performed the worst, and because I did potentially over-engineer it or I tried too hard. And something I try to be super conscientious now, especially as we get into this phase where it's like, how much stuff that I don't talk about that happens at work, or especially this kind of trajectory to like, okay, when is that end date going to be?
Sure.
To not be like, then it's usually when I get into like, oh, I just had a bunch of meetings and all this like high level stuff. And I'm like, oh, that was an interesting line. It's like, no, that's a piece of shit because I was full of crap. And I just couldn't tell the full story. So, that's where I've tried to look for different ways to be just as authentic if I can't talk about like the specific nuance that I know will pull people in and make them feel like they do know me. And then if they see me on the street, they can be like, yo, what's up? And I'll be like, hey, what's going on? And it'll be like, there feels like, because that's the key, I think, to a lot of this. I'm sure it's different based off of, when there's more artistry to it, which I would argue is probably the case for what y'all do. But at the same time too, like they being an audience just wants to believe that something's real and they want to trust, right? And so even in, a completely different genre of what the content is, they want to have an inherent trust for unless you're just watching a train wreck happen in real time, which certainly has gotten people loads of followers and loads of, interesting stuff. I think for a sustainable and truly engaged audience, it comes down to, do they know you and do they trust you? And sometimes they don't want to see us trying so hard that we're like, not falsifying it, but it does come across as like, just fucking show up on camera, or just like show us the stuff that you love, and then we'll buy into it.
So, couple of things you said there that I might use as jumping off point, but I do want to get to. Now he's changed his name to Nimrod's question. Having done over 15,000 videos, do you have attachment to any?
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah, no, it's 1,500. If I did 15,000 videos, Jesus Christ. But I appreciate it. 15,000. I totally did 15,000.
It's written, so it's on the internet now.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, like you do the math, and I'm pretty damn close to having one a day since this all started. And I definitely have attachments to some. I have attachments to the series about my friend who passed away in the summer of 2022.
Yep.
What super bothers me about that is some of those got caught in the WMG music thing, and they just mute the whole thing. They won't pull the track and leave your voice on it, so the audio is just gone. Like you can go into it and replace the audio, but it's just going to put the song on. It's not going to go and put the voiceover back on, which sucks. But is what it is. There's a handful of days that usually it has to come back to me, and luckily they do an on this day, so you basically see like what you did last year, 2 years ago, etc. will show up like in your own personal pages. I'm sure a lot of people know. And this past week was our trip to Tokyo, so that was just like an amazing trip down memory lane. And the last one I'll say for that is it's usually the most mundane of days that I have like an attachment to. I did one day where I broke up the day into like 5 different TikToks, because it was like, here's 4 a.m. to 7 a.m., here's 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., here's like, and that, because I am genuinely long-winded, as John knows all too well. And that allowed me to like deep dive into not just being like, I did blah, 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 blah. It was like, cool, like let me talk to you about the morning routine a little bit more and kind of deep dive into it. And on that day, Evelyn came to the office. We had takeout sushi in the conference room with the skyline view in the background. And it was just kind of like a very normal, but just like a fun day overall that for me checks all the boxes in regards to why I don't mind routine at scale and doing the same thing on a consistent basis and eating the same meals, etc. Just kind of like a nice, almost like, comfort piece. Oh, the last one I would say is when Kelly got her 6-star for running all the majors. Telling that story was super fun because it just resonated with a ton of people. And I actually saw somebody recently made a video, and I started getting tagged in this one video like crazy, and they had done a similar post about their girlfriend, and he didn't put me in the credits, which is fine, I don't really care, but it was nice to see like when people start tagging me, they're like, I saw that he followed me, and he was like, oh yeah, 1,000% I'm doing this because of Tim. And I was like, oh, that's cool, like you're doing an ode to your girlfriend in the same style that I've done ode to Kelly's. And that was a nice kind of seeing things reverberate moment.
So you mentioned bringing Kelly into it and having Ev, and just going through kind of what you call the mundane. There's something though that's like, and this is in part of your storytelling, that really just it pulls you in, and when you think about it, right, like you're literally just documenting your day, right? And it feels weird as somebody who spends their day with you, to look back and think about somebody finds that interesting. Like, how does to some degree there's like this voyeuristic mentality behind it. Did you? And something I've always actually wanted to ask you: did you ever feel like you needed to either kind of get over that aspect of it, or like be weirded out that so many people enjoy this part of it?
Honestly, no. And the reason why is because I feel like I'm genuinely so fortunate on so many different levels that like I want to kind of invite people in to experience as much of it with me as possible. I didn't think that it could get to this kind of granular level of the mundane, but at the same time too, as you know from having to deal with me as long as you've dealt with me, like there are elements that I genuinely find so much joy in eating the same thing every day, like sticking to a pretty strict routine relative to how I schedule my day at the office. Fish tacos every Monday night, and it's true joy that's within that. It's not made up. So bringing people into that, and especially because I can geek out on like all the details, and I try not to take anything for granted. So to be able to share that more broadly is one of the best gifts within that. And it also makes it way easier. I would say vlogging is like the lazy man storytelling to a certain extent, because you just capture what's happening and then you kind of like play it back, and it allows that I don't have to, for the most part, don't have to be like, I don't know what I'm going to do next week. Again, I have to get better at that, but like, I'm going to do whatever happens, and then I'm going to try to tell the story about that. And it's been nice because I could have a conversation about just about everything that you kind of see in camera shot around here, or the day in general, and say what I enjoyed about it. And that's been a really nice piece. So the voyeuristic thing, like, it's only weird when I think about the audience outside of like the people that I know. But then you have to get past that too, where you're like,
Sure.
my dad watches these, my coworkers watch these, HR watches these, charter communication PR watches these. Like, that's a little unnerving, but you kind of like, you have to block that out. At least I've had to block that out.
Sure.
It's super jarring when I walk into Michael's office, Michael being our bosses, like my boss. And if I hear my voice on his phone, then I'm like, oh shit, I'm in trouble for something. Or just like in general, even if it's not trouble, it's like, oh, that was interesting, or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that just, because I make myself cringe with 90% of what I put out there. Like almost immediately I'll hit post, and I'm just like, oh God, what am I doing? Like, just because it feels awkward to do it.
Right.
I don't mind the voyeuristic element to it, but
Sure.
I'm just like, oh God, I'm just so awkward in general. Like, what am I doing? Like, this is just so weird. But I love the process, and I love sharing, and I don't mind how much that invites other people in, especially when you get the feedback that you get, whether it's people that see me on the street, or people that send comments and DM, to have gotten handwritten notes that have some of like the craziest, nicest things. I mean, some of you've probably seen where I'm like, good Lord, what's going on here? So, and I think it's a gap, right? Like, there's not a lot of people that are my age, our age, kind of, 46. There's not a lot of people that are 46 and they're like, this is what happens underneath the hood. I've always been wildly curious, especially for successful people that I admired. I'm like, okay, I see the output and I see like X, Y, and Z, but like, how the hell did you do that? Or like, what does it look like? Or is it a train wreck at home? Like, blah, 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 blah. And so I think I know that part has been helpful, and that makes me more comfortable too, where it's not like, oh, just like, let me show fancy shit and do whatever. That seeing people like, I'm not afraid to get older anymore, or like, I'm not afraid of like, it feels realistic that I could actually find somebody that I care about as much as you and Kelly care about each other. And so I feel like, oh, this is 1,000% worth it. And if I can get over my own, like, making myself cringe, which I make myself cringe all the time, then you just got to roll with it. And that's, that's what creators do.
Yeah.
I think that's natural feeling though for most content creators, right? You always feel awkward with hearing your own voice too, right?
Oh my God.
Seeing yourself on camera.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when we do this podcast, when we do this show, like, I am actually happy that it's live and I don't have to sit there and edit it, because then I'd be just watching us over talking back and forth, and I'm just like, I can't I can't watch myself talk like this.
No,
it's probably one of the reasons why we don't put out like clips from the show, because once it's done, we don't even think about it. Because I certainly don't want to go back and watch myself or hear myself talking about it. So
I mean, I always debate on doing that just to to reel more viewers in, because
people sat through us for an hour already. They didn't want to see more of us. It's okay. So. So I get a couple of questions here coming in from the chat. Steve says, I cringe just thinking of posting and receiving feedback. And actually, you're the one that taught me this, right? Like, feedback is either negative or positive, right? It just is, right? It's something that you just take on to try and improve yourself. It's actually something when I was first getting started in toy photography, Machu and I had to learn our responses to that, right? Like, there'd be parts of it where he was giving me feedback just to push me to get me to be better, and I took it as a negative, and I was
too blunt.
Well, you still are, but we moved past it. So, but yeah, I mean, Steve, like, that's something that's just a natural part of it, right? Like, and if you want to get better, you got to take that hit to the ego every once in a while, and it's not a bad thing.
I got one thing to say to that I think is a super important piece to all of this, but especially that piece is you have to think of the broad scale of audacity that's out there in this world. And John's probably heard me on this diatribe before, right? You have the people that are doing god awful things, whether that's politicians, businessmen, people that are just doing terrible things, and they wake up and like, cool, what's for breakfast today? I don't care that I have this press conference. George Santos, right? Like for some reason his name would be like, how fucking batshit crazy is that dude? And he's like, cool, I'm gonna run again, or like I'm gonna ask. And the audacity is off the charts. And it's not like there's like a lot of those kinds of people that can just do that stuff, and they do not give a fuck. They just don't care. And then there's some people that are like, I think does this orange sweater make me look like we like, all right, I'll take this off. Like, I don't want people to make fun of me, or like, they see a bad comment, like, fuck. So look, and I 1,000% get it, because I've had to come to that conclusion in my own head to get me to that place. But we all deserve a little bit of audacity. I don't think we need it to the extent of like some of the craziest motherfuckers on the planet that are like, can do these things and be like, hey, my soup is cold today. And they're like, dude, you're a despicable human being. And that's like, and you're concerned about your cold soup, and then on the other side where some people just like, don't give themselves a chance to like put that sweater on and be cool with it and be like, I am who I am. So I come back to the gut check of, are my intentions good? Right. Because I think if you've got good intentions overall, then fuck it, let it fly. And are my efforts solid? And I think it's as simple as that. So like when I come back to things where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I should say X, Y, or Z or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, things are going to get misinterpreted. People are going to have their own perspective on things. You're never going to be able to please everybody. People are going to want to talk shit about whatever. And that's fine. To your point, John, like what can you learn from those things? But at the same time too, I'd say that we all deserve that chance to at least believe enough in ourselves that if we have good intentions and we're willing to try, then why the hell not? Why anybody else versus us?
I'm realizing, Matt, we didn't give him the cursing speech, so just
No.
Oh no, it's all right. Fuck it.
We're well enough into it.
Yep.
So,
I was saying with you, I'm surprised.
But no, it's the channel. It's the channel. It's not me.
Yeah. All right. I'll be mindful.
No, let it fly.
No,
Let it fly.
you're good now. I just figured it was a solid joke, because usually once we're 20 minutes in, it's okay to let it go. So
yeah.
Wade Create says narration of your life would be interesting, but the soundtrack to your day is fascinating to me. What's the process for picking music?
Great question. The process is I found like maybe 2 or 3 tracks that actually work, and I just leaned into them. Like I was for a long time, I was like, I tried too hard to find just stuff. And actually I would say it's so funny because TikTok is based off of what Musical.ly was, right? Like I think most people know that story. Yeah. But TikTok's music selection sucks, in my opinion. It sucks because not only because of the WMG thing, but also because you're limited to the whatever they give you, right? So it's like, cool, here's 10 amazing songs by whatever artist. Here's the 1 minute that you get. Doesn't matter how weird or awkward that 1 minute is. Like, that's what you get. Do something with it. It's like, I love this band. Like, I love the Strokes. I want to use just the first 30 seconds. Like, I don't want to just hard cut into the middle of a, like, a chorus or a verse. Right. TikTok doesn't let you do that. Reels let you do that. And I have not leaned into that as much because I think that actually opens up like more storytelling. But so the way I got there was trying way too hard to be like, this is a cool song, this is a trending song, blah, blah, blah. And then managing to that versus like, what is going to help the thing in my head come to life the best? Mm-hmm. And I Googled or I searched through TikTok like crazy for Wes Anderson style music because I felt like that just was appropriate for a multitude of reasons. The one track that I use probably more than any other track is literally called like Wes Anderson, blah, 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 blah. And it's a piece of stock music from an amazing Japanese musician who I've now stalked like crazy. And I actually bought the rights to it off of like Audio Stock or whatever his, wherever he sells his stuff, because I want to be able to take it to different platforms. And then it makes it easier for a handful of reasons. It's also, for a while I was like, oh, is this going to get too tired? But there is something that's smart about like the audio cue, and people just think of that person. And then last year, no, I guess maybe it was a year and a half ago, I had this moment or this phase where a lot of people were like literally replicating my exact style. And it was a different song. It was a song called Sunday by a Danish house music dude. And it was like the intro song on his album. And it was just like super chill. And it worked really well for the style of voiceover. But it also kind of runs its course where like there's just elements to it where it's like, I just can't hear this again. And especially as so many other people started to use that and replicate the style, I was like, I got to put that to the side. It's hard. I would say, especially for making content at scale, it's like pick a handful of things that are just in your rotation so that you're not constantly cycling, unless you've got the time to like go through. I've got an Epidemic SoundCloud account, but I couldn't tell you the last time I actually went through it and tried to like look for stuff, because I feel like that's a 6-hour rabbit hole. Then
Oh my God. Yeah.
yeah, and then all of a sudden, then you get to post and you start to edit something. And you're like, yeah, I want to do this, and just like, I'm gonna, especially like we don't know if TikTok's going to be around for much longer, right? And if it's not around for much longer, that's going to completely change the way I approach this stuff, because I will look at reels like, I want just this section of that song, and I will edit to that right now so that I can kind of get better post and cross platform. I try to just, what feels right, what can I own, what has the right vibe to it, and not try too hard. Because again, if you're gonna make one of these things every day, it's super easy to get sucked into a just wormhole of endless options and what do I do with this now. And that usually, at least for me, that has not panned out well.
So one thing that you mentioned here, and just me from knowing you, right, is kind of, I would say it's probably a core part of who you are, right? You talk about finding music that you can use or reuse or that sticks with you. You've talked before about eating the same thing every day or wearing the same suits, and just kind of what people may find monotonous eliminates that guesswork for you, right? It's just like, right, it's one less decision you have to make to then be able to put the attention to something else, or to creating. How did, like, and I can't remember if we ever talked about this before, but how did you develop that? Was that ingrained in you? Like, where did that kind of come from?
Great question. It's a combination of things. One, it's a way to idiot-proof my life, right? To your point, it's about decision fatigue. And I've found, especially when it came to like started that I can fully remember with food as a kid, and just being like, I love this thing. I'm just going to eat this until I am sick of it. So some of it was just like literal attraction, and then just needing to get something out of my system of like, I'm going to eat this thing every single day until I barf or need to move on. And I was just kind of cool with that. And then once I became an adult, the food thing always stuck around. Where it's like, I'm just gonna have dinner, like this is my schedule for dinner. And it was just like, I like this. I was never like, hey, I want to try this place. I want to do like, have I done that? Yes. But it was just, I was much more comfortable. Also, there was like comfort to it. It's like, oh, I'm going to get that thing at that time, and allowed me to like look ahead to, oh, that's going to be enjoyable. That'll help me get through like class or whatever.
Yeah.
But then once the career thing started to get serious and suits became more of a realistic day to day, I was like, I don't feel comfortable trying to like guess what to wear outfit wise. I will stand here and just look around and be like, fuck, what goes with what? What do I think about? Like, and I'll overanalyze the hell out of it. So it's like, oh, suits, no brainer. Pick a shirt, pick a tie. It's going to have to be one that goes with it. That limits my decisions. And I'm just genuinely not smart enough to process all of those. Like, there's plenty to process already. So I just need to grab and go. And so that, eliminating decision fatigue, feeling comfortable in the outcome of my decision, right? Because there'd be sometimes too, we're like, oh, this looks cool, I think. I don't know. And then like all day long, you're kind of like tugging at your shirt, or you're doing something like, it's like, I even feel goofy without a tie on, as John can attest. So I still wear a tie. I'm like one of the 2 people in the entire company that still wears a tie every day. But it's because I feel goofy without it, or I'll feel like I have to like be that much more conscientious of like with the shirt. Does it go with the? I mean, there's times, I don't know how many times you've noticed this, man, but there's times where it's like the same exact thing Monday, Tuesday,
Oh yeah.
Thursday, but like literally the same shirt, because I'm like, oh, it's not that dirty. I'll just stick it back in there and, just kind of like rinse and repeat. And then, yeah, same for salad, same for snack hour. Like, it truly makes it feel like I'm idiot proofing things. I'm not spending time where my brain has a very difficult time to like process and then feel comfortable with the outcome. And then I can just kind of go and do other stuff and be weird in other places. And it's kind of remarkable, like how much it's actually helped. I really don't think, if I had never learned that, or had I never developed that, there's no way I'm doing what I'm doing now, because I'd still be figuring out lunch from 4 years ago on a Tuesday afternoon, where it's like, yeah, but this has got that, and oh, the sauce over here would be good, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, nope, just want to open my app, click reorder, be done with it. But I still do. Like, I'll still like, I shot this the other day. These are the things that I shoot, but I never post.
Right.
Because I think that there's something to that, where you're like, I just want to do this for the sake of doing it. Even though, yeah. I was walking in the building and I was like, I am so excited about lunch today. Yes, it is the same lunch that I've had for God knows how long, but I am genuinely excited for lunch today. Like, and it becomes this thing, and I kind of prolong it until like 2 o'clock or whatever when I go to grab it. But I'm like, yeah, that tofu quadruple cucumber order, that's the jam. Can't wait to get that back to my desk and, get lemon juice in my eye when I squeeze it.
I remember that TikTok specifically. 2 things going off of what you just said. One of these I'm literally just putting together. You talk about having a suit so that you know that you're comfortable and all this, and then you not being without a tie. And then Fridays you'll like come in rocking a Canadian tuxedo, or like a velour sweatsuit. So where's that, the comfort level is kind of hysterical there. And the second thing is completely going out the window. So I can't even remember where the hell we were going with that. I've completely lost the thread. Steve, though, has another question for you that says, what type of feedback did you receive as a child? And how do you think that influenced your perspective?
Steve, great question, man.
I'm telling you, Steve's going to replace me. Check out Between Two Sentinels next week with Steve Morrow and Machu Toy.
My dad was kind of corporate and my mom was super artsy, so kind of makes sense combination wise. My mom was incredible in regards to how forward looking she was about mental health. So she would literally, like, when she would tell that I was just bugging out as a kid, she'd be like, do you need a mental health day? Which in 1993 was not like a super hot topic, right? But she would be like, oh, do you need a mental health day? And so she would sometimes let me take a mental health day. Literally did not resonate with me until within the past 3 or 4 years, like how important and how kind that was of her to do that. So that'd be one thing. The other thing that was huge was I got not terrible grades, but I got extraordinarily mediocre grades, like C's across the board. I was that kid where people were like, I don't know if he doesn't try or what's going on, because he seems like he's kind of smart, but like his grades just reek of being a dumbass, and like he just doesn't give it, like not quite sure what's happening here. And it was like my Achilles. It was my Achilles heel, because I would get so paranoid and be like disappointing people by what my grades were. And my mom could see that I was stuck in this vortex of like, something's not clicking at school. I'm a good kid otherwise. I don't get in trouble. Like, I kind of, check all the other boxes and would win awards for like, sportsmanship and that kind of stuff. But school, And when she saw that I was struggling that much with it, one time she's like, I need you to understand that you are more important than a number on a piece of paper. And I remember being like, wow, thank you. Like, that's kind of incredible. I promise I'm not going to fully abuse that, but like, that's kind of remarkable to hear. And even to this day, like I don't necessarily say that in performance reviews, but I try to like live to that general ethos of like, there's some things that matter and there's some things that don't. And it was also like, it's also just growing up in a very bizarre environment of, my dad's job and, him being around Howard Stern, which I'm sure some people are like, just heard that and like, wait a minute, what? But yeah, my dad was the general manager at a local radio station during the Howard Stern era. So that was like a super weird thing to have happening in the background. Mom being an artist, my mom was an alcoholic. She, that happened when I was like 15 years old. That had a massive impact. And my dad had stage 4 melanoma when I was 20 years old and survived, but he was one of 85 that survived this experimental chemotherapy concoction back in the day. So, the feedback was usually just, I think, largely believe in yourself. Here's a bunch of weird content to digest because your dad works at a radio station and you can watch as much MTV as you like within reason. And, let me teach you the history of rock and roll kind of stuff, and then it was nurtured with a do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Golden rule about friends. You're more important than a number on a piece of paper. My dad was still kind of corporate. He'd be like, well, did you know what my boss said to me today about this thing? And I remember being like, dude, that's the quickest way for me to tune out human possible. I don't give a shit. And, from what you've told me, your boss is a lunatic anyway. So like, why would I care about that? But they were dope. They are dope parents. And I really do think the mental health thing plus the you're more important than a number on a piece of paper was a critical piece for me to wrap my head around so that I had any confidence whatsoever.
I never had those. Never.
Yeah.
I wish. I mean, I kind of wish I had those, but like at the same time, would I? It kind of the way you grew up is what made you how you are,
Mm-hmm.
right? For everybody.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's like my mom would. If I got a 98 on a test, she'd be like, "Where's the other 2 points?"
Yeah.
Until like when I got to what was it, junior high, when I learned how to use Photoshop to manipulate my report cards.
Hey, you got creative with it, and that's what influencers we are now. So hey, just real quick because I feel like we've talked about this before, but we've had pretty similar upbringings with our fathers being very corporate. And just a quick side story that sparked a memory. I remember like not doing well on a spelling homework, and my father being like, if I showed this to my boss, what would happen? And I immediately shot back with, why are you showing him my spelling homework? Like, it makes absolutely, where are you going?
Dude, there's quintessential, that sounds like a quintessential John line.
Yeah, and it's shaped it for sure. Tenio says, Mom asked me where the extra credit was.
Yeah. My mom was harder on my sister than she was on me. So like, I guess it's also because of the age difference, right?
Right. Yeah. I feel like we are barely scratching the surface on all the things that I wanted to talk about, but I know that we want to be respectful of your time. You good to go for a little bit longer, or
I gotta get you 10 more minutes, and I gotta get to.
I'll take 10 more minutes.
Cool.
So there's been a lot that you've accomplished in the last few years in doing the the social media and the creating content. One thing that I had written down here that I really wanted to ask you is, what do you hope to invoke in someone who sees either your content or your work?
Great question. I want to say the art of the possible. I think for a couple of different reasons. I don't want them to see the art of the possible in regards to like the aesthetics of things, other than the aesthetics that might be like true to oneself. So what I mean by that is like, don't necessarily see like the shit in my house, but see the ability to make a personalized space. Don't necessarily see like what you think might be cool or not cool. See somebody that's like, put in the time and the thought behind, the tattoos that I have. So it's more the art of the possible, not because like there's something aspirational about me in particular, but just like in general. And if I can paint the story of, not a great student. I mean, look, and this is all fully admitting the fact that like on the grand scheme of the planet, like, I've got a leg up in a multitude of ways. So
Yeah.
I also don't want to be like, hey, like everybody should go and aspire for X, Y, or Z. Like, no, everyone should aspire for happiness on their own level. But hopefully the takeaway is craft a world in which makes you happy. And if that happiness is based off of like eating the same salad every day, then God bless and go be yourself and do that thing for yourself. Specifically from a career perspective, that anybody can do whatever they want once they get in the door. If you really, really want to. Not everybody wants to, which is totally fine too. Some people will be like, cool, I'm good here. Like, I don't want those responsibilities. Or, I would rather be a farmer than I would be a desk jockey, right? Like, but if your aspirations are significant, or if your aspirations are seemingly, you feel like they're like a little bit outside of your comfort zone, if I can do the things that I've done, then I feel relative to like just being in the door in a corporate environment and being able to adapt, being able to sit in the room with some super serious people and go through some really serious things. You're like, oh my God, what am I doing? I don't belong here. That anybody can do that if they want to. The one video that I had pinned on my page, which I actually had to take down because it got sucked into the music license thing, and so there's no audio on it. So I was like, okay, that sucks for somebody that's like, oh, cool, what's the one video he's got pinned? It's just his hands on a desk. But what it said was, I was never good, basically said in so many words, I was never a good student, but I've figured my way out around here. So if you take nothing away from my page, anything that I can do, you can do better if you want to. And I think that last part is like a massive needed caveat, because I don't want people to be like, oh, I got to wake up at 4 and I got to do blah, 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 blah. Like, no, absolutely. You do not have to, but you should believe in yourself. And even if you sucked at math, it doesn't mean you can't run a $30 million P&L. And even if you weren't good with teachers, doesn't mean you're not going to be good with a boss or the president of the company. So it's comfort in the art of the possible. I'll say that if people can take away like, cool, I think that things are a bit more broad than I might have given myself credit for. That's amazing. Like, I'll happily hang my hat on that.
Matt, I see that you pinned this comment from Duart, but I get what he's getting at. But just and Tim, for a little backstory, Duart is an incredible diorama builder who actually is running a special right now. I'm sure you remember the Street Fighter game, right? At the very least. So he has been creating these backdrops or backgrounds for Jada's Street Fighter toys that have been coming out. And what's our codes again? Between two
Sentinels for $25 off the full diorama, and then just send it for free shipping.
And that goes until Friday, so you still got time if you haven't been doing it. Oh, look at that, we said Street Fighter and Toy Migos showed up. Welcome. But yeah, I know, again, a couple of things that I hope a lot of people take away from this conversation. One, do the work, right? Like you said, you're 3 years, 1,500 videos in. It certainly doesn't happen overnight, but the drive to keep going. I think something that we're going to say more often is believe in yourself. And here's a bunch of content for you to consume. Go watch the rest of our YouTube channel. I might literally steal that from you. So thank you for that. But again, we barely scratched the surface on the 800 questions I had for you, which I could ask tomorrow, but it doesn't matter because it's a different setting. So hopefully, you'll come back and this wasn't too weird. And hopefully, I think we have our one-on-one tomorrow, and I'll still walk out of there with the job for the time being, at least. Not to get into it now, but you've done talks for the Philadelphia Eagles. You've been invited to the White House 3 times. Last question, just like what is the opportunity that you've had that has surprised you the most?
Oof.
Doesn't have to be the biggest. I mean, it could just be, walking down Broadway and somebody yelling out your name. I don't know. So,
it's probably either the Stanley Cup at my house, And being able to do that, that's I'll pick that one, right? Like the NHL was like, hey, we want to pitch you this idea. I'm like, okay, what do you got? Like, we want to bring the Stanley Cup to your house. I was like, you're pitching me that? Like, let me, like, of course, yes. Like, what, are you kidding me? Like, what in God's name? Like, that's insane. And so we set it up so that it was a surprise for my dad. I had him over. I sent a text to some of my friends too. They're hockey obsessed. And I was like, I can't tell you what's going to happen, but be at my house at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, please. And some of them were like, oh, I've got an obligation. I was like, I'm not going to beg. So a couple guys show up and they're like, okay, like what's cooking? My dad got here and the taco delivery. I was like, we're going to order tacos. We're just going to hang out. Like there'll be something. The taco delivery guy showed up at the same time as the Stanley Cup. Doorbell rings and I give my dad the phone and I'm like, dude, hold it like this so it's like pointed at your face and go over to the door and answer. Luckily, the taco guy like stood back for a second, but the Nest Cam footage I have of that absolutely amazing because he's like standing there kind of looking around like, what the hell's going on? And my dad was like, first of all, of course, he gets 10 steps away from me and he does something with the phone, so it's completely unusable except for the audio. And the door opens and the guy already had the cup out of the thing. He's like, special delivery for Tom. And my dad was like, what in God's name? For the first 20 minutes, my dad does not say this. Like he's like one of those dads that's almost like way too unimpressed with things. Yeah. And he kept looking at me and he goes, how did you make this happen? How did you make this happen? But it was just so crazy to have it like sitting here. And then my friends were like, are you fucking kidding me? This is the real Stanley Cup. And so we just sat here in my kitchen for like 2 hours while we just had tacos and shot the shit and hung out with the Stanley Cup guy and this amazing dude from the NHL that I can never thank enough for making that opportunity happen. So White House is 1,000 stories in and of itself. And there's been more that I've been, offered than I could have ever guessed imaginable through all of this. But bringing the Stanley Cup to my house to surprise my dad is probably that thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would say that's a good one to hang your hat on there for sure. We'll wrap up here. Obviously, Timm Chiusano, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Where else? Anywhere else?
That checks. I mean,
checks all the boxes.
Where I'm actually active. Those would be the ones.
It. All right. And if you aren't following him, be sure to go check him out and support him as he ventures into his new career and leaves me all alone on a rowboat by myself in the middle of the ocean. Kidding. Sarah, seriously, thank you so much for being here and taking the time. Hopefully, like I said, seriously, hopefully you'll come back. We'll talk more about this, but it's been awesome. I think I'm coming up on my 6-year anniversary in the next 10 days or so. It's been really incredible to just learn from you, and I can't wait for part 2 in the future. There it is, Steve, just finishing my sentences now at this point. Machu, what else? What do we got coming up this week? We got Go Figure Go on Friday.
We got Go Figure Go on Friday.
We got a Turtleverse draft tomorrow. I think is 98% confirmed. We'll find out.
Yes.
So
I'm still not sure if I'm gonna maybe participate in that. Like I'm not.
Okay.
Well, because that's your thing, right? I don't.
Hey, we had somebody drop out, so you can fill a spot if you're hesitant on it. So
okay.
But anyway, our new sign off now. Thank you for watching, whether you're watching live or on the replay. We appreciate you. And don't forget to believe in yourself and consume more content. Machu, cue the outro. Oh, look, I got a little thumbs up there. How did that happen? That's weird.
That's new.
Yeah.